Hi, everyone. This is VA to VA. We're excited to be with you today to talk about how to build professionalism with your team. And we're going to have a lot of exciting things to discuss today. First of all, I'll let you know Lynette is unable to attend today. So Lisa and I will be trying to handle that on her end. So we're going to talk about three distinct areas. We're going to talk about attitudes and dress, professionalism with your team and with clients, as well as handling difficult issues and ethics. And so I am Tammy with Tammy's Office Solutions, and we do virtual business services anywhere from bookkeeping to digital marketing to virtual assistant services, as well as writing services. And glad to be with you today. And then we have Lisa. If you'll go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Kolb with Augusta Virtual Assistants. I'm based out of Augusta, Georgia. I own and manage a team of other online business managers, or I like to call us productivity specialists. And we specialize in working with attorneys and realtors with their back-end office needs, contracts, discovery, follow-up, things like that. And we also offer website design, administrative support for different types of other business owners, and social media management. So welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. It's amazing how our businesses change throughout time too, isn't it, and evolve. And because the virtual world is ever changing, the business world is ever changing, and as virtual administrators and virtual service providers, we have to change as well. So it's neat to see how our business is always changing. It's one of the aspects I love about owning a business.
I do too.
Yes. So the first part we're going to discuss is about attitudes and dress and professionalism and how that plays into, especially as a virtual professional, how that play into it. And so that was the part that Nanette was actually going to discuss for us. So Lisa's going to take the first part of that, and then I will follow up.
Okay. All right. A professional workplace attitude and appearance allow employees to take pride in their work and improve worker performance. Managers who behave professionally set an appropriate example by encouraging their people to conduct themselves in a manner that supports company-wide success. If you're just launching your startup business, or you have a few years of experience in your repertoire, there are ways that can sharpen your business's appearance, attitude, and even operations to reflect high standards of professionalism, yielding you with a competitive advantage and winning your way into the hearts of consumers and business partners for years to come. Dressing professionally, or more specifically, dressing for your industry, can boost your confidence and automatically give you the authority and appearance of a professional. What you wear will depend on your clients, your work environment, and the nature of the business itself. For example, if you work in a factory, you're not going to wear a three-piece suit. And your manager won't, I doubt, would wear a three-piece suit, because factories are of a more casual environment. And you're usually working with your coworkers and not out with the public so much. So, but if you are working with the public, and you are in an industry that requires a little more dress up, then you may find yourself in a business suit or a dress, if you're a woman, of course, and you would need to dress accordingly depending on that industry. Now, although we work virtually, dressing for virtual meetings, or even dressing even only casually and out of our pajamas, allows us to help with professional attitude. And you can have that when dealing with clients, and it puts you in a business mindset. We definitely discourage you having a virtual strategy session of sorts with a client in video chat wearing PJs or, you know, something that wouldn't really be appropriate for that. Every Monday morning, I have a strategy session with one of my clients at 9:30 a.m. with him and oddly another virtual assistant that he has. And I make sure that I am dressed appropriately for that. I put my makeup on and I fix my hair, and I may not, you know, have dress clothes on for it, but I'm definitely not in clothes that I would just, you know, simply wear around the house. So yes, we would encourage you to dress accordingly. Now, if you're on the telephone, you know, that's a different story, and you happen to be in your PJs, that's fine. But if somebody's going to see you, do dress accordingly for that and let it go along with your professional attitude. The way you communicate with your team and customers will often determine whether you close business deals, score funding, land sales, and achieve positive reviews throughout your business career. Above all, it will demonstrate your ability as a leader and ultimately dictate if people will talk or will take interest in your business. Now, here are a few tips to remember. And I mean, chime in, Tammy, if you have any feedback on what I've said so far.
I will. The only thing I was going to say is that about the pajama is that I think people often think we work that way, but we don't, obviously. And I love the fact that you brought up, it puts us in a professional mindset. So even if we're not going to see anybody that day, it's certainly when you get up and get dressed and don't stay in your pajamas unless you're not feeling well.
Right.
It definitely puts you to the mindset and motivation to move forward and work in the day. So I think that does make a huge difference.
Exactly, I agree. Now, one of the tips is professionals identify and satisfy their customers' needs. That's a given, but professionals are expected to produce results. Strive to complete those deliverables before their due dates. Very important, because you want your clients to refer you. And if you don't present yourself in a professional manner, then they're going to think twice about giving business to you or referring you to their constituents or others that they network with or engage with.
Absolutely. And the other thing with that, because we are online, there's so many more review sites today that you run the risk if you're not professional. It's going to get out there. It's not going to just always stay between you and the client. Often it's going to be reviewed and other people are going to put comments. I mean, Yelp, we're even on Yelp now. You know, business owners are, and not just for restaurants anymore, you know, and also on Google, and that places huge marks in your rankings as a website and in getting hired.
Yes, I agree. Professionals need to know their trade. The very word professional implies that you are an expert. So keep your knowledge up to date. Always perform to the best of your abilities and become an expert in the skills and tools necessary to do your job. Don't advertise or place on your website or tell others that you can do something that you cannot really do or cannot really deliver to them. Professionals deliver, again, on promises that they make. Can you really do what you're about to say? You need to talk the talk and walk the walk. Very important in keeping your clients and gaining more clients and having your clients talk well about you.
And they'll soon find out if you can't. You know, if you can't do it, they're going to know it. You can't fake that, especially in our fields of endeavor. They are not going to be able to, I mean, they will be able to tell because they're used to a certain performance. And if you can't do it, they'll find somebody who can.
Exactly. Word travels fast, especially on the internet. Whether verbal or written, Professionals need to communicate clearly, concisely, thoroughly, and accurately. Resist the urge to blame the customer when communication goes awry. Effective communication is ultimately your responsibility, not your customers. And professionals adhere to high values and principles. Appreciate and support those you work with. Practice good manners and proper etiquette. Have high ethical and moral standards. Be honest and fair in all of your dealings with others. And definitely obey the law.
I had to laugh at that because I would hope that most people are absolutely doing that. Yeah, I think ethics is a huge part of this discussion, and she goes on to give us a few more tips, and those are professionals are humble and generous in their praise of others, and again, as we're talking about with clients, don't blame the client, but easily take your responsibility in the matter, and you will come off looking much better than trying to blame. And so if you're humble in that and, taking the blame where you need to, it's definitely going to be better and you're going to be more respected. So you need to respect and acknowledge the talents of your peers. There's nothing more unprofessional and self-serving than telling others how wonderful you are. And it's funny, I was just reading an online article about this today, and about the things that people hate to see online and on Facebook. And the biggest thing is they don't like people self-promoting. So in other words, even in personal accounts, they don't want to see somebody going, oh, look how beautiful I am, or look at this or that or the other, all the accolades that people like to put out there. They even view the person less attractive than somebody who's humble. So I found that to be interesting, in that by being humble and respectful, it goes a long, long way.
It absolutely does. As Tim McGraw would say, be humble and kind.
Yes. And so then also professionals help their peers and are respected for doing so. So information isn't a limited resource. Contrary to what some may think, your mind won't be emptied by giving away current wisdom or experience. And so like, even when I started, you think that, well, if I give away my tip, they're going to know my little secret and they're going to get more clients or whatever. But that isn't, it isn't the case. Just as we've helped others with their multi-VA companies, we love to do that with others. And then we find that others come to us and ask questions. So if anything, it just helps to establish you as an expert and a professional in that field. So definitely be willing to share those kernels of wisdom. Think of knowledge as an ocean of facts and not a stream of data. I love that. It is possible to share what you know and still keep one step ahead of the competition. Simply apply yourself and learn something new every day. And that goes back to what you were saying, Lisa, that we have to keep with our skills. And if you're not involved in courses or taking additional webinars and skill bumps in the field, you really need to be, because it changes so fast. Then she says professionals thank others in meaningful ways that most benefit the recipient. And it reminds me of the book 5 Love Languages. I don't know if you've ever read that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But we tend to give love or gifts the way we want to receive them instead of looking at the recipient and how they really appreciate it and they receive it. So that just puts me in that mindset. Always try to thank others in a meaningful way for their help, for sharing knowledge or their support, whether by gift card, referral, or some other significant way. And professionals are pleasant even during trying times. And we all know we have those times in business. So this is very important. Being pleasant when you are having a lousy day is not dishonest, but in fact thoughtful to care how your attitude affects those you interact with. And sharing your misery is not the mark of a professional. So the saying, misery loves company, not always true in workplace.
Yeah, not in business.
Definitely not. And not only that, but your tendency isn't to get encouragement. They're just going to avoid you usually, or not want to talk to you because you're always complaining or something. And then professionals meet or exceed expectations whenever possible. And I know you talked a little bit about this. It says in our profession, we aren't bound by a time clock in that we have wide latitude in daily self management. That's huge. And if you can't do that, this isn't the business for you because
Right.
you have to be able to manage your time. And so she says, and it says, use it wisely. If getting the job done means working a couple of hours on a weekend, then do it to meet your obligation. And even meet it ahead of time because we do want to exceed our clients' expectations. And that's how you get referrals and other things. So,
Exactly. I have some work I have to catch up on this weekend. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. I'm not putting it out there that I'm going to be in business, but
right.
it's some things that some catch up work that I need to get done before Monday.
Absolutely. And as a business owner, first of all, as virtual professionals, I think one of the biggest misconceptions, not even for multi VAs, but any VA, is that you can put in a 40-hour billable work week because everybody, you soon learn that's not possible. You'll be working 60 hours really in
Right.
reality to bill 40. So it's very important that you use the time you have so you're not wasting that time. And then the time that you're not billing, that it's spent wisely on your own business. Otherwise, you'll soon be out of business.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Now, the next section we were going to talk about is professionalism with our teams and with clients. And I think one of the things we have to address is millennials, because I know this is a big deal in our society today. Talks about millennials and work ethic and their entitlement. You know, right now that's the entitlement generation. And so I thought I wanted to at least address that a little bit because I read a really good article by Eric Chester. No, I'm sorry, the article was by Ryan Jenkins. But there's a quote that he quotes from Eric Chester, in the author of Reviving Work Ethic, A Leader's Guide to Ending Entitlement. It's a long title, Entitlement and Restoring Pride in the Emerging Workforce. And he says that this book describes ethic as a positive, enthusiastic people who show up for work on time, who are dressed and prepared properly, who go out of their way to add value and do more than what's required of them, who are honest, who play by the rules, and who will give cheerful, friendly service regardless of the situation. That kind of sums up everything we just said to a degree. And I thought that was a good definition of professionalism and wanted to share that. But then the other thing that he talked about is that workers who view the work they do for fun or not fun in millennial as critical part of the bigger picture has to execute the work with excellence, derive higher levels of satisfaction from their work, and unlock more opportunities, become more promotable. So, in other words, you know, they're looking for almost more interaction, more things on deeper levels. And you know, what is usually a millennial says, what's in it for me, you know, because
Right.
it's the entitlement. So if we can engage them as working with them, whether they're a client or part of our team, I think it's important. And I'm hoping this helps others as well that have teams. But you know, they also like to make sure they're making an impact somewhere, so a social impact too. So that's really important to them. So you know, sometimes in the article it says sometimes they'll say, what's the biggest impact I can make with the limited time that I have? And some people interpret it as lazy because it clashes with our previous generation's view of hard work, you know, and just moving forward regardless. But their desire is to make an impact with the time they have. And so I thought that was interesting because it was a very different way to look at it. And so he said there's a few actions that can help installing or instilling strong ethics with millennials, and that was communicating clearly, like we discussed, the expected work ethic. Too many managers assume that millennials ought to know the expected work ethic, and too often they don't. They just need to be
Right.
told, and we make assumptions. Also, demonstrate the right work ethic for them. If you don't, as the team manager, owner, whatever, if you're not demonstrating that ethic that you're requiring of them and the communication of them, then they're going to just give you back sometimes what you're demonstrating. And so
Right.
you need to demonstrate as well. And also keeping that healthy life work balance is a big deal to them. They want more out of life than what they saw their parents having, which was work, work, work.
Mm-hmm.
They want that work and play. They want that balance. And more of the millennial companies are giving more off time because they see it as more creative. When the person comes back to work, they're more refreshed, ready to give even more. And that's an interesting concept because you and I didn't grow up with that. We
Right.
grew up with you earn your time and it's this XYZ and very narrow alignments, I guess, and narrow terms.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also suggest that you create channels for work ethic, ensure millennials are equipped and have access to innovative tools so that they can put their unique skill sets to work. So, in other words, make sure you have the software and the up-to-date tech items that they can work with because that's what they're used to and they're going to want to do that. And I think virtual work is perfect for a millennial because they're used to being online and they're
Mm-hmm.
used to moving at fast paced
Right.
when they're online. And so I think it's a perfect fit. And then connect work ethic and work values with the bigger picture. So in other words, the job leader is to paint a picture of the preferred future and help a millennial connect that their actions actually serve a bigger picture. So it's not just about this one small task, but look, your small task is going to equate to this. So, and then if they can have a what's the word I'm looking for? Something that is that social good that they can attach it to as well. That's huge for them, and that's a big reward in their mind. So I think those are really big things. Then just to talk about, did you have any comments on that, Lisa? I
No,
don't want to
no,
cut
no.
you
I'm
off or
loving it.
anything if you did. But just to talk about professionalism, communication with our teams and with our clients. Um, and I'd say they're similar in a lot of ways, but basically, I think you have to be professional as the manager or as the team owner, but you also have to adhere to certain expectations. So, in other words, be clear in what those expectations are. Make sure that when you are giving them things to do, that you even put, if there's a deadline or something like that, that you're expecting it to be done, put that in there. Don't just assume they know when this has to be done by. So make sure that you're clearly communicating. I know sometimes I can assume that somebody knows how to do that and just say here, to
Right.
somebody. And I have to make sure that I'm very clear, please, and go through steps, that this is what I need you to do, and I think there's a falsehood in wanting to subcontract people or own a multi VA company that, oh, well, they're going to do everything, but that's not true because there's so much time in managing a team that people forget about. That just because you subcontract doesn't mean you're not involved always, so sometimes you can either be the project manager or you may have to communicate various aspects of it and just checking in with clients and checking in with your team, making sure everything is going okay. So there's always aspects of it that you have to manage, right, Lisa? I mean, do you find that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I have all of my team members sign. It's not a contract, but
Mm,
it is a set of expectations when they come on, and I call it my commitment to excellence.
absolutely.
Um, and it's got several things like I will be diligent in all work performed and proofread all materials prior to submission for approval. I understand it is my responsibility to make sure that I am using the correct information and am regarded as a professional. I do not need approval of every task. Therefore, it is expected that I will submit completed work to the client. On occasion, if I'm unsure of the task because it's new to me, I will consult with Lisa. I will meet deadlines set for tasks and projects. If for some reason I'm unable to meet a deadline, I will contact Lisa in advance so that tasks or projects can be reassigned to another team member. I will utilize my project management software, project management system when applicable to a particular client by submitting tasks and deadlines in a timely manner, as well as marking completed tasks. And I will provide my best efforts and attention to the needs of the clients through Augusta Virtual Assistants. So I feel like this helps, and going along with what you say, you know, setting those expectations of professionalism, because, you know, I have had to say a few times to a team member, just because you work at home doesn't mean that we don't conduct ourselves in a professional way. We have a legitimate business. I've even had to mirror those words to people that I've networked with in the past, that made it sound like this was a hobby or work from home, not legitimate type of situation. And I quickly defend my company and my industry and let them know that I am a professional. I do have a legitimate business and I conduct it as such, and I expect the same from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that too. It's getting better. I feel like the industry has really come a long way. And I think that today a lot of professionals recognize the benefit of that and of using virtual professionals. You know, I think it definitely has come a long way. But I agree, there's been a long, I think, because it's been around a long time. Virtual administration, anyway, has been around a long time. Believe it, you know, people don't realize how long it's been around, but it's just really becoming known in the last few years in a bigger way. I feel like, well, I won't get into the politics of that, but anyway, but yeah, so it's, I think that more and more people are recognizing the value in it. But yes, I agree. We do have to defend ourselves, defend our coworkers, and that's part of that professionalism in a good way. You know, of course you're not going to lambaste them, but you know, just set them straight. This is what we do. You know, and quite honestly, sometimes we work a lot harder and a lot more, you know, others, and don't get paid for some of the things we do.
Exactly.
Definitely. So I think, and then with communicating with the clients as well. And I love that your excellence, your striving of excellence commitment that you have them sign. I think that's wonderful. And I think we should probably all have that in some way or another. I mean, I have it in my contracts for my clients that this is what we do, but right, I should have, you know, them sign it in their contracts, my team as well, that not necessarily in the contract, but like you said, you have it in a different agreement. And
in the
because it is
operations
important.
manual. It's part of the operations manual.
Yes, exactly.
And every one of them signs it and returns it to me, and they have a copy for themselves. And you know, I've had to a couple of times, you know, go back to that and what did we agree on, and you know, we need to remember this. So
Right, absolutely. I think that's so important. And like you said, setting out those expectations up front, even though sometimes we do have to be reminded of it. It's so important because, you know, this is our business. And if you run a good team, they that ensures that loyalty and that desire for them to work with you. And if you're communicating and all of those things line up, that they're going to want to promote you too. I mean, there's a huge thing about employee branding. And although they're not employees, they're still similar to that. They're virtual employees and they're 1099, but they're still going to promote you and say, well, look, our company does this, you know, we could help you with that and things of that nature if we are promoting those things within the culture of our company. And so it's very important. But at the same time, they don't have the risk that we have in it, in owning the company. And so our risk is larger. And so we have to go the extra mile to make sure we're doing those things with our team and making sure that everybody's happy and doing what they need to be doing. And on the flip side, the same is true with clients. there's so many things with customer satisfaction right now, and we need to be aware and be checking in with our clients and making sure that they're happy, because too quick it can be that they're not, we don't even realize it, and then they're going to somebody else if you're not careful. And so communicating, having a good relationship and a good rapport, speaking their language sometimes, not foul or anything like that, but speaking their language in the sense of, how they communicate best. I mean, that can even be whether they text, whether they email, there's so many forms of communication. We talked about that one time, but um, some clients communicate better one way or another, and we have to be professional in all of those ways that we communicate with them. And it's easier sometimes to fall back on less formal aspects of communicating in professionalism, say in text versus email. When we send an email, we feel more professional. And so we're going to word it differently maybe than in a text, and we should still be just as professional in a text as we are in an email. And so I think, and also setting out the expectations up front in that contract list, you say, okay, well, this is the rate and all of that, but really list out, these are the things we're going to do for you. And if for some reason, like I have a situation right now, even the client's asking us to do more than what the package was, and it would mean we would have to put more hours, which we don't have, into it. And so I just had to remind them that, this was the package we agreed to, and it doesn't include that. I was looking to see if we could add that for you, but right now the hours don't allow for that. So if you want to add an additional hour or two, or, we can make a new package if need to, it can be custom. But right now, that's not something we can do for you. But we'd love to be able to help you with that, and then go from there, because I can't give away my time and my team's time either for work that we, aren't going to be paid for. And hopefully they respect that as well.
Sure.
And so it's that communication, making sure that you have that communication with them and clear, in a very professional manner. It's not like you're going to send it back saying, no, I can't do it, and that's the end, but that you actually describe, this is why, and this is where we are. And I think transparency is a big part of that. I think if they understand you're doing your best to help them with their business and really are working hard at it, then they see that, and if you're transparent in it, not that you're saying I'm slaving and sweating over here, but that you're just transparent in all that you're doing for them and helping them with, then I think they see that, hopefully, and understand it and want to continue to do business with you.
Right.
So those are kind of my tips with that portion. Now we get to talk about some of the difficulties and how to handle some of the difficult situations we run into, which we do, unfortunately, and also the ethical portion of our talk today.
Right. Because, I mean, all of us, if we've been in business long enough, have a difficult situation arise, whether it be with a client or with a team member. We are humans, we are flawed, and everybody doesn't always have a good day. So yeah, handling those issues in a professional way is very important. So when you're dealing with, I'll start with when you're dealing with a difficult situation with a team member. Experiencing difficulties with a team member can be exhausting and stressful. Setting clear expectations from the beginning of the relationship can alleviate most problems, but not every scenario can be predicted. My advice is to address the situation, not the individual. Ask questions and try to understand their point of view, as well as helping them see yours. If you have developed a relationship built on trust and respect for each other, the issue is usually resolved rather quickly. If the issue involves a new team member who has not quite learned your style of management, or if there's maybe a personality conflict, that happens too, it may be a little more difficult to resolve. Now, for example, I had a team member come on. She made it through her vetting process and even with a test client, and gave her an actual client for herself. And it was a project type of client. It wasn't ongoing. And she had particular tasks that she needed to take care of. They didn't get taken care of. At week's end, I looked at the spreadsheet and the project management software to see where she was at. The client was saying that they weren't, getting the results they had anticipated. So she and I had a conversation, and she decided to get defensive, along with telling me that there had been a death in her family, in her husband's family, and they had to break away and go be with family. And so I asked her, why didn't she tell me that that was the case? Because I could have easily given the client over to another team member, because I understand that life happens, things happen. And that's why I love having a team. We all depend on each other to fill in the gaps. Well, she proceeded to get even more defensive with me. And I felt like she was making excuses as to why she didn't tell me there had been a death in the family, and went on to say how upsetting it was and I should understand, and, not really keeping with the subject at hand, which was the tasks getting accomplished. And I was not attacking her by any means. I was trying to find out what happened. And in that, she decided to buck me, I guess, like I said, be a little defensive. So then her voice raised and she got a little louder. And at that point, I made up my mind that she was not going to be a good fit for my company. And I dissolved the relationship. And I had to stay calm. I had to keep an even tone of voice. I was not going to get in an argument with her. It wasn't really about her. It was about making the client happy and maintaining the professionalism of the company and the integrity of my company by coming through, following through. And like Nanette had, written earlier, and we mentioned delivering that you say you're going to accomplish. So that was kind of a difficult situation, and I wasn't expecting her to get defensive and raise her voice at me. I wasn't expecting that, but I kept myself very calm, and it went very smoothly. Another example was I have a veteran team member. She's still on my team, and behind the scenes, but without the client knowing, she and her husband were planning to build a house in another state and move. And my team members do invest in their clients and their businesses. And that was the situation with this particular client and team member. They had a partnership, a relationship, and talked almost daily. And I love that. I wouldn't have that any other way. But the team member decided to let the client know of her plans. Well, the client calls me kind of panicky and upset, thinking that she was going to lose the team member and lose that part of her business because they worked so well together. And I assured the client that the work could progress. The geographical location was not going to be an issue at all. And then I had to call the team member and ask her, why. And of course, in the beginning, she did not see an issue with that. And I understood that. She could not have anticipated that the client was going to get upset or worried about it. But as we talked, she then understood that. She apologized. She apologized to the client, and it continued. In that situation, because of that situation, I did add a clause to my subcontractors' agreements saying that any dialogue within the team or in the team members' personal lives that may or may not affect a client is not to be conveyed to that client by that team member. I will make that executive decision in the future. And if I feel like it's information that the client needs to know about, then I'll be the one to deliver it. Now, when you have a difficult, or I wanted to let you give some feedback, Tammy, we had discussed situations like this, and you have an example or two that you could add.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that those are prime examples. Just like you said, she couldn't have anticipated that the client would be upset. Nobody knew how the client would react, and you would think, having worked with the client day in and day out, she might know some of that, but not exactly, and you never know what a client's going to do. But I've also had trouble with communication with clients as well, in them not being professional in the way that they handle situations and things of that nature also. But I think it's a delicate balance no matter what. And I think that in dealing with teams, it's sometimes I have team members who try to tell me how to run my business and how to do it better. And even though they might be new to business and things of that nature, which is fine. If they want to do theirs that way, that's fine. But I've learned a few things and I'm always open to suggestions. I don't, if there's a better way to do it, I want to know. I'm all for saving time and money and all of that. So, but when I'm in a rush of things too, and have things coming at me 100, most team members don't realize that they're working on one client or two at the most, sometimes, or maybe a little bit depending, but I'm working on all of the clients and pulling in new clients and managing the team and meetings, networking, and all of those things. And they forget that. And sometimes they hit us with a lot of different things that they think they need to know right away. And you might not think they need to know right away and that it can wait, or vice versa. You feel like this needs to be addressed right away, and they think it can wait. And so sometimes, I find too, especially with newer team members, to be clearer on keeping their phone handy. Even though I don't expect them to be 24/7, that during the workday, it's nice if I can reach them if there's an issue, or if the client has questions or isn't sure what's going on, especially with a new client. And I've run into that recently, actually, and reminding the person to please keep the phone charged, please keep, availability, look at your email regularly, all of those things, just so that we can stay on top of any items coming in. Right. And I've gotten a lot of pushback on this one, and it's a little frustrating because I know they needed it, the work and everything, and I was trying to be nice in doing this, and then I get that. So it's very frustrating. And then also you might get told by somebody, well, we'll see how this goes for another week. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If you think you're going to only be here another week or two, I need to find somebody so they can be trained in that time, because otherwise it falls back on us.
Right.
We already have a full schedule.
Right.
So those kind of things are a little bit touchy at times, but for the most part, things can go along very smoothly when especially once everybody gets used to the flow of everything. So it's usually adding or taking away, team members or clients, that a lot of times where that comes up.
Right.
Or changes.
And then there can be those difficult situations with a client. Us team owners, managers sometimes need to step in to resolve an issue when there is a conflict between a client and a team member. Having good conflict resolution skills is imperative in these situations. I can tell you. Displaying a positive attitude and acknowledging the client's feelings sets the stage for a good resolution. Avoid confrontational language and make sure your posture and your tone of voice is relaxed. Involve the client in the resolution by asking them how they would want the issue resolved, and then allow them to give constructive feedback. The same actions can be used with a team member as well. Get both sides of the story before making any decisions. And then keep in mind that the goal is to make everyone be on the same page in order to continue working together. Be prepared to negotiate so that it ends up as a win-win for everyone. Now, for example, I had a client call one time to say they weren't happy with turnaround time from the team member. So I listened to what they had to say, and then I called the team member and asked them their side of the story. In this situation, it was kind of dual clients. It was, there were two individuals that we were dealing with, not just one. Two individuals that were making decisions and working with the team member. And sometimes that can get confusing. What ended up that had happened was the client that called with this turnaround time did not know, and I did not find out until I talked to the team member, that the other client had told the team member to hold off on that certain task. And so nothing happened. It stalled. They went on to doing something else. And when the client that complained saw that nothing had been done, they contacted me. So then we started seeing a little bit of a power struggle between the two clients, and we had to define who was going to either give the direction to the team member, or there needed to be regular video chats with the three of them. We had to devise a plan to where the team member was not, called out like this if one said and the other didn't tell. You see what I'm saying? That made for a confusing situation. But because I listened to everything the client told me that called to complain and contacted the team member who filled in the blank, it kind of resolved. The client that did not complain, I had a conversation with them, and they said, well, I'm going to have a conversation with the other, my partner, and I will be making the executive decisions. So I will have them not contact the team member anymore. I will tell the team member what they need to and not need to do. So we just kind of backed up and let them deal with it, and, waited for the next instruction. I had another example where this was a project that my bookkeeping client took on to help an individual business owner get ready for tax time. We don't do tax preparation in that we don't prepare taxes, but we prepare the client with getting together receipts or reconciling their financial software, whatever they're using, usually QuickBooks, but at any rate. My team member let me know that the client was talking to her in a very condescending way and being very rude to her. Because of this situation, this happened early on in the business, I added a clause to the contract that goes to the client saying that our company and no one on our team is going to engage in any kind of activities that are unlawful or make any team member uncomfortable. And that could run the gamut. I did tell my team member that if he talked to her in this way again, to let me know, and I would confront him with that, because I'm very protective of my team members, and I am not going to have any of them treated any kind of way. It's going
I was
to,
just going to say that too, is I'm very protective. I was just going to bring that out too. I am very protective of my team. And so I am definitely their cheerleaders. I
Mhm,
am for my clients, absolutely, but
mhm.
I'm very protective over my team too. So I completely understand what you're saying, Lisa.
And I never did have to confront him.
Mhm.
I told her, I said, get it done, and we're giving it to him. And if he comes to us next year, we're not going to work with him.
Mhm.
I don't want to work with people like that.
Right.
So she just dug in and got it done. He had said, I have everything organized, and it wasn't as organized. And then he
It never
calls,
is.
yeah. And then he calls her and says, where is this aspect? And she looks at what he gave her and she says, you didn't give me that. I don't have that. So he goes back and comes back to her and says, oh, I had this in another place, but never apologized. He came across to her as, you have it, you just didn't do it, you know. So, and he didn't ask to come back to us, and I was glad for it. She maintained her professionalism, um, and I was very happy for that. I knew she wouldn't be any other kind of way, and I was glad that she told me what was going on, because he would have seen a professional, but another side of me,
Mhm.
kind of like a mama bear over my team members.
Absolutely.
I won't allow us to be treated in any other way but professionally.
And I
So,
find too, do you find that sometimes in, I don't want to say screening process, but in the interviewing with your client, in that first part, sometimes you can tell, how it's going to be, and you can choose not to take on that client, obviously. I've had to learn that as well. It was hard lessons through hard clients to learn that. But then other times they seem one way through those onboarding process, and then a whole different way when you work with them. So sometimes it's hard to tell that.
it is, and I wish there was a better way of us
Mm.
to be able to vet clients that, maybe they could wear a sign that says, I'm really difficult. That would help.
Oh, wouldn't that be lovely?
That would help a lot.
Yes, it would.
Yeah. But in
In
conclusion,
general, in the whole population, could we do that?
exactly. If you're really a difficult client, please wear a sign to let us know ahead of time.
Flashing light.
Exactly. But in conclusion, there has to be a balance between communicating something difficult and being as sensitive as possible to those involved. Making sure to have your facts straight before you begin, know what you're going to say and why you're going to say it. Think carefully about how you will answer questions and stay focused on the goal of resolving the issue.
Thank you, Lisa, because I think all of those were really great points that you brought out. And I think for everybody in general, this is good for the general population, but thinking before you speak in a difficult situation makes a world of difference. I know for you and I, faith comes into play as well. And I know I can be praying the whole time I'm dealing with that client or with the team member or whatever, and asking God to give me the words and the wisdom, and to not say anything that I'm going to be sorry about or that I shouldn't.
Or may not be sorry about.
Yeah, well, either way, but that I
Yeah.
shouldn't say. Remember those reviews.
Yes.
So, yeah, because I mean, I even had a client, and wasn't his fault, but a client who got a bad, and this goes to reviews, got a bad review from somebody who never did business with him, and Yelp would not take it off and would not value other positive reviews that came on. So sometimes, and I will say that I know that Yelp and Google, especially, other ones you can deal with and get the reviews taken off. This is a side note. But Yelp and Google will not take those reviews down unless you get a lawyer. So unless they're really threatened. Yeah.
I'm having a hard time with Facebook right now. I
Uh,
have this guy, and everybody that listens to this is going to jump on Facebook.
I'm going.
I have this gentleman. No, he's not even a gentleman.
I think I know where
And
you're going.
I do not know him. I do not know
Mhm.
anybody in his state. Um, I do not know anybody who's associated with him. And this time last year, it's been up there a year, he put a scathing review on my Facebook page, uh, making it look like I'm a drug dealer.
Oh, you're kidding. Well,
And
that's
I mean,
interesting.
it's so out there that anybody that really knows me knows that
It's
it's
crazy.
spam. It's
Yeah.
spam. It's bogus. But I have asked Facebook 3 times to take it down, and they will not.
What did they say?
They don't reply. I get nothing. I say
And
that
that's
it
the worst part about Facebook.
right.
That's interesting because it happened to me recently, not that bad, but I had somebody who had liked my page and I didn't know him. I didn't work with him. I was not a client. I don't know who he was, the same kind of thing. And he put 4 stars on, and I just messaged him and thanked him for the review, but said, was there something that we could do differently to make it a 5-star review? What did we do? And he said, we'll work on it in the future or something like that. But it was not anything of value, that meant anything. And I was like, that's really odd. And another person put 5 stars that I didn't even work with, and so it's almost reminds me of the endorsements on LinkedIn where anybody and everybody can do it, and it doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but yeah, I know it's just the oddest thing out there. And most people today, and I know I do it too, if I'm going to work with somebody or work with, or look at doing business with somebody or even purchasing something from somebody, I go on and do reviews. I'll look at the reviews and see what's said about them and everything. So it is really important, and I hadn't heard that Facebook won't take them down.
We'll
So,
take this one down. I
yeah,
have no clue.
yeah, it's really odd. I don't know. I mean, it gets really bad when you have to get a lawyer to take down reviews,
Absolutely. Well,
that are not even clients, that are
this
not
one
even
is just
clients.
so far fetched. I mean, when you
Yeah,
read it, it's like, really?
yeah.
Really?
I understand. I mean, well, the one client I was telling you about, this person had not even called in, and they said I think they got confused between their service and another service or something, but basically said that the person who answered the phone was rude, their prices were high, blah 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 blah, and all this stuff, and it was like so false because I knew everybody that did that answered. I was one of the people that answered it. One of my team members was, before I didn't do this anymore, and he answers it. So there were only 3 people it could have been, and none of them would have done what he said they did.
Right.
And so it's just awful though, because his business now has plummeted because of that one review. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's so unfair. It can ruin people's lives.
That's
And
awful.
so I think it's unfair that people who maybe not even know you can go on, and I think they should have to prove that they've done business with you or something
I
in
agree.
order to do a review. It's just too many things out there today that aren't
Legitimate.
kind, and they'll just do whatever just to get a rise out of people.
Right.
And it's unfortunate. So, yeah, and the hard part is not to backlash and still remain professional, is
Right.
just like we're talking about, and so like when the person gave me that, which was fine, 4 wasn't bad, it's just I didn't know him, and I thought, okay, so I thought I'd just ask him, and so I was very professional about it, and just said, well, let us know if we can help you with anything,
Right.
because I don't know. It's just very odd. But people do strange things nowadays, so I don't know. But we have to, in the midst of the trying times, remain stable, a stabilizing force for our clients and our team, because if we waver, they're going to jump ship too. So we
Right.
have to remain steadfast and professional in what
Right.
we do. So we're actually out of time. Can you believe it?
I know.
It went fast
It did.
today. So, But anyway, if any of you had questions, I didn't see if I'm sorry for that. Usually we're checking that very regularly, but it just kind of went by. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email us directly on the va2va.com website. It's vatovva.com. And also you can always just message us on here on YouTube, because we do get those as well. We check those on a regular basis. So whatever we can do to help you, please let us know. We have some exciting things coming up soon. I think Lisa mentioned last month, we're working on a course to try and help those of you who want to become multi-VAs companies, so that we can help you run your teams and other things. And we'd love for you to be a part of that soon. We'll let you know when we're releasing that, but we're working hard behind the scenes on it. So just know that we want to help you in any way we can. Any last final words, Lisa?
No, thank you for watching, and we hope you got some nuggets of information out of this that will help, even if you don't run a multi-VA team, you know, just in business and working with your own customers and clients. And we will see you again next month.
Absolutely. A lot of what we discuss isn't necessarily just for VAs. I mean, it can help any business owner. So absolutely. Thank you for reminding us of that. And we really appreciate your watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and please share with others. If you found value in this today, please share. We really appreciate it. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next month.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.